Hello, guys, and welcome to some Premier League Match Day 4. Time flies, Match Day 4, and we haven't even finished August. We close our eyes, we open, and it's Boxing Day. But so far, fourth Match Day, and we have Tom Rennie with us. Hello, Tom.
Happy Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas. All good?
I'm doing very well. Let's not talk about West Ham, and it's going to be fine.
Kind of warm. Yeah, kind of warm for being Christmas.
Too warm. It remains too warm. England is just too warm, full stop. It's raining today and it's still too warm. But of course, we moan about everything.
Okay, let's cheer up, especially if you are a Gunner fan. You are cheer up because it's the only team with 9 points. We are not going to mention which is the team with 0 points, but we're going to analyze all the games with Tom Rennie, with you guys. Remember, leave your comments, ask any question to Tom, and of course, press the like and subscribe. And now, let's go on with the show. So a lot of things to comment, especially, for instance, in the first game we are going to analyze because it's Man United and there are always a lot of news around Man United traveling to the south to Southampton after the victory against Liverpool, of course, on Monday. Not a lot of people believed in Man United to beat Liverpool, but with intensity, they got it, and now they are going to St. Mary's. Southampton, we are not very sure about their performance this season. I guess it's really uncertain, no? If you want to trust Man United with these odds, at least me, Tom, I wouldn't trust them yet.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, briefly on Southampton first, what a win at Leicester last week. A really, really important victory as well, because I think here on this programme, and most pundits, we were suggesting Southampton could be in trouble. I still think they're going to be in trouble. I still think they're going to be in the bottom 5, bottom 6 come the end of this season. And they're scrambling with 35 to 40 points already. But brilliant for Che Adams, scoring twice from the bench. You know, they don't really have a goal scorer, Southampton. They often have a bunch of 6 out of 10 players, plus James Ward-Prowse, who's the kind of elite player at the club, the captain. Someone's got to take that mantle. Someone has got to be Danny Ings. And last year they tried Adams, they tried Armstrong, they had Long, they had Breuer. You know, they had a bunch of people trying it. But Che Adams for Southampton last week stepped up to the plate and he knocked one out of the park, to mix my footballing and baseball metaphor. So fantastic for him, though I'd still be concerned about Southampton defensively, certainly in this game. Last week, Djenepo was at fullback. They went from 5 to 4 from the Tottenham game that I watched. You know, the formation isn't set, the team isn't set, the tactics aren't set, but someone is scoring, and that matters, and that'll make a difference. Goal scorers are what matters in the end in football, in my opinion. For Manchester United, everyone's been speaking about it since Monday. The great thing about Man United right now is that people like us who talk about it for a living, it's almost depressing for us to talk about a team because we have to talk about them because of their popularity and the profile of the club. But it's been a kind of unleavened diet of misery. And it's frustrating on one hand because for them, it's really depressing. And it's frustrating for others who don't support Man United because also their misery is like our best ever season. So it's annoying for everybody that they have been such a topic of discussion. You know, they're having protests on the same day they buy Casemiro. I'm not discounting the Glazer protest, but from the outside, that's what it looks like, and it's frustrating. So it's quite nice that this week we can say, weren't they good? You know, they finally deserve our focus. Last weekend or last Monday, you know, dropping Ronaldo had to be done. They did do it, and the offense looked lively and effective against Liverpool. They dropped Maguire, had to be done, and Varane and Martinez look a good pairing. Luke Shaw dropped him, had to be done. Malacia at left back looks very, very good. And also, don't play Fred and McTominay, right? For years, we've been discussing this now. They don't really work together. You've got to find a new scenario. They did on Monday. And of course, for this game, there's a chance that Casemiro might be playing in midfield instead of Fred or McTominay, and a trio of potentially Bruno, Eriksen, and Casemiro. It might work. It might be diabolical, but it feels like it should work. But who knows? So to this game, I wouldn't have a great deal of faith in Southampton. 4.5 to 5 to 1 are not great odds. 2 to 1 for Man United is not bad. So I'd be looking already at 2 to 1 to Manchester United. I'd also be looking at a lot of shots in this game. I think Man United are going to have a lot of shots in this game. So I'll be going above 10 shots, 10 plus. Look at some of the individual players. Rashford to have 2 or more shots on target. You get that for about 4-1. Jadon Sancho, 2 or more shots on target. You get that again for around 4-1. Those are 2 players I expect to start in this game. In terms of result, go Manchester United win. In terms of shots, go high. And I'd also be looking here for Man United to win both halves as well. So all sorts of really positive Manchester United bets. There's a reason Southampton are going to be 5-1 by the weekend. I wouldn't touch them.
All right. Early kickoff is always tricky. Rafael is telling us both teams to score for some of the people like Wanchuk, but most of our audience actually have some trust in Man United. Again, last season, for instance, worked really well. Man United to win from behind. Perhaps this could be another option. And if you would take these odds around 2.0 for Man United to win away against Southampton, similar odds we have for Brentford to beat Everton at home. And given the fact that Everton is really bad, as we know from last season, only 1 point. That draw against Nottingham Forest, actually, you said that it's going to be, they will not win that game. And at the end, it was a draw. And now it's going to be very hard, I guess, traveling to the west of London to face this Brentford. Odds, as I said, Tom, around 2, even above 2 for Brentford to win this game.
Yeah, I'm surprised, actually. I think Brentford are much bigger favourites to win this game than what the odds suggest. So again, like the previous suggestion, 2-1 might be worth your time here. You might need me not to go into any great detail about this game because 2-1 for a Brentford win in a game I fancy them in is actually really, really good odds. Look, I think Brentford, they should have won last week against Fulham. They certainly should have lost against Fulham last week. And the great thing about Fulham right now, and it's interesting looking at the league table right now, look at the 5 teams down the bottom and look at the teams that have all got more than 1 point. Some can score goals, some can't. At the moment, games are a little bit helter-skelter. They're a little bit, goals at both ends. Start of the season tends to be like that, and the strugglers tend to be the ones that can't score. Brentford can score, and Brentford will score in this game. Ivan Toney playing fantastically well. Brian Mbeumo looks very, very lively. A lot of positivity around Brentford at this moment in time, though there are some issues defensively. Ivan Toney, the form he is in right now, to score 2 or more is around 13-1. So if you want a side bet on this game, Toney to score 2 or more is very, very nice for me. I wouldn't double it. I'd still do a sizable bet on Brentford to win, to double your money. And I'd maybe put a small amount on Ivan Toney to score a couple of goals. Why? Because he's scoring all sorts of goals. He scores tap-ins. He scores headers. He can run in behind. He can score from distance. And everyone is set up in this team to work with Ivan Toney. I look at the way Brian Mbeumo just works around him, looks to create for him. So that's something I'll be looking at for Brentford. For Everton, I have no confidence in them at all. Not with my money, that's for sure. I think that the manager, Frank Lampard, is still trying to work out a team. I think if you are going to bet on Everton here, you go for a low-scoring result. So that would be they somehow manage to stop Brentford scoring because they're back 3, which I assume is going to be Holgate, Cody and Tarkowski. They've been able to stand firm against tidal waves of Brentford attacking. But the offense still looks poor. I mean, Solomon Rondon played last week. What are you talking about? How has that happened to you? So, still no Calvert-Lewin. Doubts about Anthony Gordon, who wants to go to Chelsea. No significant new signing will be in the team for this game. So, Brentford win. Everton don't score. And do a separate bet on Toney scoring a couple of goals.
Brentford to win, as I said, odds are around 2, but here we have different opinions. For Marco, this is a draw. For Sarwar, this is double chance for Brentford. That doesn't pay that much. And for Innocent, it's a roll of a dice. So double chance, either Brentford win or Everton winning. Next game, Brighton, Leeds. Very interesting one because both started the season really well. 7 points for Brighton, 7 points for Leeds. They have the top scorer of the competition, Rodrigo Moreno, who could have said that at the beginning of the season with 4 goals after thrashing Chelsea and Brighton is very favorite. Tom, 1.95. You were absolutely correct. Trusting them, backing them against West Ham because they don't lose against West Ham away. But it's too low, no? Brighton to win. They are two favorites for this game.
They're too low considering their home form of the last couple of years. It's almost constant good performances and draws. You know, if they can turn those draws into wins, how many times have we said that on this program? They'd be a terrific team. They could be a top 6 challenger with the way they're coached, the way they play, the way they dominate the ball. But they do still not have that prolific goal scorer. With all due respect to Danny Welbeck, they don't have Aguero, for example. You know, add an Aguero type or Aguero to this team, you know, I think they would be a top 16. That's how good I think they are, Brighton as a unit. I went to the game last week against West Ham, and look, West Ham were very, very poor. So it's difficult to judge a team how good they were when the opposition are so bad. You know, you can say Brighton played really, really well, but you also have to say West Ham was so awful. I think they could have been beaten by a bunch of newborn babies in Brighton kits last week. That's how bad West Ham were. But Brighton played well. Danny Welbeck looks a threat. His movement is very intelligent. Leandro Trossard is a top 6 footballer. I think he's fantastic. And they've taken away the players they've sold, and they've replaced them with players of equally good quality, so it would seem. So, classic Brighton once again. The trouble is the home form. 1.8 to 1.9 to 2 to 1. It's not great value. It's not great value. So, you've got to find something else in here. If you are going to bet on Brighton, you feel the need to bet on Brighton. So you could be looking at them to score. They did against West Ham last week and winning by 2 goals, 1 goal both halves. Win both halves is quite nice for Brighton because I think they're defensively going to be too strong for Leeds if they are to win, right? They've got to keep a clean sheet if they're going to win. For Leeds, they're really interesting because they're going to outrun you. They always are going to outrun you, but they're going to outrun you because they let you have the ball. So the running stats this week, people are going to go mad about the running stats post-game. They'll say, oh, whatever the result, Leeds ran another 10 to 15 kilometres collectively more than Brighton. Yeah, because possession was 75-25. So, of course, they run more, didn't have the ball. You know, they've got no interest in the ball, Leeds United, which is why they're so good in games like Chelsea last week when it goes well. And they struggle against teams they should be scoring against. So it's going to be a classic home v away. I think first goal is absolutely crucial. So score first, win this game. The Rodrigo thing, you can get 5 to 1 on him having 2 shots on target. Even that would still surprise me. It feels a bit like an anomaly, like when Amir Zaki was top goal scorer for Wigan 15 years ago. You're like, oh, great. And you didn't see him again. I still don't rate him as a Premier League striker, but I do rate Leeds as a team. Picking a result here is tough. I think the draw is interesting. I wouldn't pick Leeds only because of Brighton's score. I'm just going through the history of Brighton. I think tight game. I think low scoring. I think both teams score when a draw is likely, but you can double chance it with Brighton in the draw.
All right, the draw. Odds around 4. Marco is going for a draw. Wanchuk and Marco is telling us Leeds double chance. Of course, the odds are very high for Leeds, so you can pick double chance and still get good money. And Sarwar, Brighton over 1.5 goals because they can score, as Tom is saying, or Brighton to win. Blue Shark is saying, as we said, the odds are not great for Brighton to win. Next game, perhaps we see much more goals in the next game. I think so. Chelsea, Leicester City. This Chelsea is kind of a hit and miss because they played well against the Spurs, and then it was very bad against Leeds. Probably Aubameyang is coming to help the team. This is a hell of a signing, especially for the money they are talking about. And what to say about Leicester, Tom? Very leaky, very leaky. They don't have Schmeichel. They are conceding a lot of goals. Actually, is the team conceding more goals right now in the Premier League. Only 1 point, 8 goals conceded. So bad times for them to travel to Stamford Bridge.
Well, I think you were right. The first thing you said, goals. There's going to be goals in this game. I'd feel very confident of goals in this game, and I would make any bet on this game to be above 2.5 goals in the match. That's 2-1, that's 3-1, that's 2-2. I think you're going to get at least 3 goals in this game. Why? Because both teams, you said leaky. I think it's an excellent word. They are leaky defensively. For Chelsea, I don't quite know what the back line is. Of course, Koulibaly was sent off in the last game. Where does he play? Does he work? Thiago Silva, does it quite work? You know, I don't quite know currently what the best Chelsea back 3 is, and Thomas Tuchel doesn't know either. You also look in midfield. I love Conor Gallagher. I think he's going to be a big hit at Chelsea. But right now, he's not N'Golo Conte, and N'Golo Conte remains missing. And even at his age and even in his sort of dwindling state of fitness, that you can't get 38 games from him now, he's still the best midfielder at the club, and I don't think it's close to where Jorginho, Kovacic, and Gallagher are. So no Conte to defend the back line and no assurance of what the back line is. Plus, Edouard Mendy, right? Good goalkeeper, good shot stopper. He's not Alisson. He's not Edison, as in he could play midfield. Like, he's all right. He's not bad. He's not like David De Gea or Fabianski or someone that just can't do it. But don't do it, okay? Don't do it. It's going to cost your team. Just keep it simple. Get your job done. Don't pretend you're Edison and can play in midfield. So lots of issues with Chelsea, offensively as well as concerns. You know, Raheem Sterling, I think, is a great player and a good signing, not scored yet. You know, Pulisic, what's the point? Is he in? Is he out? Mason Mount, not quite clicking. Kai Havertz, not a striker. No one's really replaced Lukaku as yet. You mentioned Aubameyang, but that's not done as we record this. So unless they sign him today, I think it's Friday at 12 p.m. UK time. If he's not registered by then, he can't play. And it's not done now. So he's got to get in. Then he's got to train. I don't think he's going to play this weekend. So that's a problem. For Leicester, it's just miserable there, right? And this does, you know, it's like people going into your workplace and there's just a feel about it. You need a lift from someone. And that's kind of what new signings tend to do, or new tactics, or a big win. And the moment they scored last week against Southampton, they crumbled, utterly crumbled. There was no confidence from the stands or the players that they were going to be able to win that game. And they conceded some poor goals in that game. The only way they win is to outscore Chelsea. There's a reason they're 9-1 here. This must be the longest odds Leicester have been at Chelsea for 5 years. So I think they'll score because they have James Maddison. They have Jamie Vardy. They have creative players. Harvey Barnes, again, promises a lot, delivers not enough, but I think they will score. But I'd go Chelsea win, both teams score, and go above 2.5. If you're really brave, and I feel brave on this one, I'd go above 3.5 in the game. That's 3-1, that's 4-1, that's 3-2. I think it's going to be all the fun of the fair, but Chelsea win it.
Let's be brave. Then we have good odds and we can have a lot of fun in Stamford Bridge. For one chook, this is also both teams to score. It doesn't pay that much, but maybe good for Anaka. For instance, Chelsea have time full time for Rafael and Innocent telling us that Chelsea will thrash Leicester. Well, let's see. Let's see. Blue Shark is telling also Sterling to score, as Tom reminded us. He hasn't scored yet, so perhaps it's time for him to score a goal with the blue t-shirt. Problems for Chelsea, problems for Leicester. What to say about Liverpool? A lot of jokes about Liverpool this week after the defeat in Old Trafford, now playing at home against Bournemouth. Actually, Bournemouth are above them in the standings with 3 points, and they had a very tough calendar because they've already played Arsenal and Man City. What is wrong, Tom, about Liverpool? Is only individual performances, or there is something else that is missing there?
I think that there's all the teams down the bottom right now. 4 of the bottom 5 had brilliant seasons last season. And there's a certain hangover going on with some of these teams. They're struggling to get going. They're struggling to get started. Maybe that is struggling to initiate new players into the team, as West Ham are having. Or maybe it's not having a great deal of new signings and struggling to get the old guard going, get the old ways working. And there's a bit of a hangover going on. I don't think any of the teams currently in the bottom 5, bar Everton, will be in the bottom 5 come the end of the season. So I think there's a significant blip going on with those clubs. With Liverpool, I think a midfield of Jordan Henderson, James Milner and Harvey Elliott, with the best will in the world and all due respect, is not good enough to win a Premier League game at Old Trafford the way United played on Monday. That is not a top 6 midfield. That's not maybe a top half midfield. If that was Everton's midfield this weekend, you'd be a bit like, oh, that's a worry. That's a worry. So the fact is the midfield looks sparse. You know, there's no Thiago. There's no Oxlade-Chamberlain, who's always injured. Fabinho, for whatever reason, didn't start at Old Trafford. We assume injury. I don't have more on that for you, but I assume injury, so he couldn't start the game. So there's issues there. Defensively, Van Dijk looks bad at the moment. You know, the best defender in the league, no question. The best defender of the last 4 or 5 years, no question. But his defending for the Sancho goal is terrible. You know, I know you're in Manchester, but it's City, not United, who love Oasis. You're not meant to be Liam Gallagher in your own penalty box. What he was doing was inexplicable, as James Milner told him. So I think Gomez and Van Dijk's not a great pairing. I'd like to see someone else, if fit, come back in. But again, Matip and Konate, everyone's injured. Nat Phillips, I'd rather him than Gomez, in truth, as a pairing. I think it works a little bit better. Issues there. And offensively, Firmino starting. And I love Roberto Firmino. I think he's brilliant. But should he be starting for Liverpool now? He was kind of on his way out. He's being phased out, but with no Darwin Nunez and no Jota, that issue goes on, right? And then they're also not getting the best out of Mo Salah, because when you shut down Salah, there isn't like a Mane who's going to bail you out of a tough moment like there was previously. So all sorts of problems. They're short of players. They've got to bring players in. And frankly, 9 injuries to 10 injuries at the start of the season, plus a suspension to your big signing. Of course, it's a problem, right? This is, it's not that complicated in terms of Liverpool. They're short of their better players, and they're having a hangover from last season. For Bournemouth, I thought they were woeful against Arsenal. I know it's Arsenal, but it was the lack of aptitude, the lack of effort. They didn't play hard enough. There's a great American phrase they use in basketball, which I love when they use it. They didn't play hard enough. And I know there's a lot of nonsense now about running stats and yada, 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 but I watched on that game and they just didn't put the effort in. I think they felt hopeless the moment Arsenal scored, which was in like the second or third minute. They're still missing Solanke, who, I don't think he's going to make it as a Premier League striker, but he was great last season. Only Mitrovic scored more goals than him in the Championship. He should be back this weekend. If not, pumping it up to the big striker doesn't quite work for this Bournemouth team. At the moment, they're the only team I feel like is going to get relegated from what I've seen so far. Everyone else, I think, is up in the air. I've got some favourites and some not so favourite, but I think they're going to be down there. And look, this game's going to be a mauling, okay? There's a reason they're 1-1. There's a reason that Liverpool aren't going to get up to 1.5 by the weekend, which teams usually do. I think they win. I think their second team could beat Bournemouth. I wouldn't back Bournemouth for a goal. Even with Solanke, I wouldn't back them for a goal. I'd be looking here. Do you know what? It's so low, I wouldn't bet on it, frankly. But if you ask me to pick something, I would say go heavy. I would say go Asian handicap, go -2 for Liverpool going into it, maybe even -3. That's the only way you're going to make some money on this game. -2 is not even worth it. The odds aren't great. So go big win, double it up with Salah scoring, and go for a -3 handicap.
Hard to find good odds, indeed, for this kind of games. It's going to be the same for the Man City game. Salah to score over 2.5 goals are some options. Still very low odds when we have a favorite like Liverpool and an underdog like Bournemouth. Perhaps Crystal Palace can be more dangerous in their visit to the Etihad, because remember that last season they were able to beat Man City away and to draw against them at home at Selhurst Park, both games with a clean sheet, by the way, for Crystal Palace, and they also started the season quite well, I would say, with 4 points in a very tough calendar, whereas for Man City, they dropped points. Tom, for the very first time, I heard that game was called the Oil Derby. Very accurate, very accurate. Newcastle, yes. Man City, the Oil Derby.
Yeah, it's very nice. It was Public Investment Fund 3, Sovereign Wealth Fund 3. Tremendous game of football in England. Let's do Man City. I think the issue quite clearly is at the back, where John Stones and Nathan Ake started last week. Ruben Dias come on, doesn't look quite ready. There's still no Aymeric Laporte. And despite their incredible quality, there is a little lack of depth at Man City. The trouble is that the 14 or 15 players they have usually don't get injured. They usually get put in and out of the team perfectly by Guardiola to keep them at peak fitness all season long. And it's not like when they make the change. This is why they do it, because when they make the change, they often don't drop in quality. So, Gundogan can't play. Here's Bernardo Silva. That's usually what happens. At the moment, they're a little bit short in a couple of areas. Nathan Ake is nowhere near the quality of the other centre-halves they have, for example. But still going forward, Kevin De Bruyne remains exceptional. Erling Haaland, he's missing a few chances right now, but still 3 and 3, pretty much what we expected. A goal a game, right? I know 2 was in the first game, but the average is a goal a game. So no great concerns about Man City as yet, and I think they will win this game. The odds suggest that. For Crystal Palace, they do pull off some big results, Crystal Palace. They are a very well-organised team. Their defenders, Mark Gay and Joachim Anderson, brilliant. I think they'll go 3 at the back like they did at Liverpool. So Joe Ward will be in there as well. And in Barry Eze and Michael Olise and Wilfried Zaha and a few of the others, they have tremendous attack on the counter if they can hit it. So look, I think Palace will score in this game. because City play that incredible high line. The centre-halves don't look quite ready. And when that happens, teams often land a blow. I wouldn't be amazed if Palace scored first in this game. City press high. Palace weather the storm with their brilliant defence, and they hit them on the brakes, similar to Anfield. But I expect, unlike Anfield, City to come on strong. So I'd be looking here, both teams score. I'd be looking Palace score first and City go on to win this game. I'd also be looking here for an Asian handicap, which would be maybe a -2, because I think it'll be a big win for City when they get sparked into life after an early Palace goal. So Palace score first, City win. Maybe the game is over 3.5 goals as a collective. But if you want to go -2 for City, I'd also go on that as well.
Good odds if we go for both teams to score, actually, it's 2.15. Remember, last year, both teams to score? No. In both games, Asian handicap plus 2.75 for Palace. Rui Pedro is suggesting us, so Palace not getting thrashed. Both teams to score and City to win for Rakip. No draw in either half, something similar that what Tom was suggesting for one chub, Man City to win and both teams to score. This is another option for higher odds. I think, Tom, actually this match day we have very low odds because all the favorites are playing at home and the bookies expect them to win. So unless you are creative or you go for the underdogs, which is very risky, you are going to find very low odds. For instance, in our next game, Arsenal-Fulham, Arsenal to win 1.34, the only team that has won all the games, all the 3 games so far. So happy days for them. Even Odegaard is shining, and for Fulham, perhaps getting more points, no? That's what they deserve. And this is good for a team that is fighting or will fight against relegation. 5 points, great start for them so far.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about the odds. I'm trying to find something a bit interesting for some of these games because, frankly, I can see a quite simple ACCA coming up later in the program. No spoilers, but it's pretty clear that the favourites are going to be winning this weekend because the underdogs haven't quite impressed enough for us to put money on them at this moment in time. Arsenal have been great. They really have, and I don't take anything away from Arsenal. The form of Gabby Jesus and the way Zinchenko and he have lifted standards, and the form of Gabriel Martinelli, the form of Martin Odegaard, who scored twice last week. Saliba and Gabriel look solid. All of it, brilliant. But they've beaten 3 really pliant opponents so far. Palace were poor on the opening day. Leicester, you'd love to face them right now, and Bournemouth were very poor last week. So get excited to an appropriate level, is what I'm saying to Arsenal fans. And I think they'll win this week as well. Look, 1 point, they're 1.3, 1.4. They might get to 1.6 if you're lucky by the time we get to the late game on Saturday. But everyone's going to back them to win. So you've got to try and find something interesting. What can you find? You can have Gabriel Jesus to score the first goal, which I think is lovely at 5-1. You can find that Arsenal win and Gabriel Jesus score first. It's a bit of a day punter bet, I know. But there's nothing wrong with the occasional day punter bet. And he looks a massive goal threat. So that's quite nice in this game. I'd also be looking here at Arsenal score win without conceding. I know that seems weird for Arsenal. But I don't think Fulham, even for the goals they've scored, have really done a great deal to create those chances. There's been mistakes or there's been a feverish atmosphere at Craven Cottage or penalties. I think Mitrovic has played well, but I think that Saliba and Gabriel will be tested by him this weekend, but I think they will pass that test this weekend. So look for a first goal scorer here. There's 3 or 4 real nice options in Martinelli, in Gabby Jesus, and in Martin Odegaard, who's in great form. I would pick Jesus. I would go first goal him, and I would go Arsenal win both halves, win the game, and I might even be tempted to look at a -2 Arsenal, a +2 Fulham. I think they'll win and win big.
We have to be creative. For instance, you mentioned, no, Gabriel Jesus to score, Bonjobu or Betting Gangs is telling us also Jesus to score first. Jesus, it sounds like other thing instead of Gabriel Jesus. Arsenal to win the first half, for instance, is another option. What a hell of a signing, Gabriel Jesus, for the money they paid. Was very well done because we will come later to what Newcastle is doing with Isak and paying that amount of money for the Swedish. But before, on Sunday, here we have more options, I think, to make good money on Sunday games. Aston Villa, West Ham, high odds for both sides, especially high for West Ham to win 3.3 at one time. I guess, Tom, they have to wake up. They have to score goals, something that they are not used to in this start of the Premier League. 0 points so far. Aston Villa with 3 points. They look vulnerable. So perhaps with Scamacca that you have behind in your altar, he scored his first goal in Europe, but now he has to do it in the Premier League. Good odds if you fancy West Ham to bounce back, no, Tom?
Well, I mean, briefly on Aston Villa first as the home team, they've been poor in all of their games. You know, they brought in the centre-half Diego Carlos, who we thought would be the rock at the back, and he's out for the season. And they've gone back with Konsa and Mings, who are simply not a good defensive pairing. In midfield, Kamara looks okay. You know, the Villa fans are really drooling over him, but I'm not too sure about him, McGinn and Ramsey as a trio. They keep playing Leon Bailey, which doesn't make a great deal of sense to me. Buendia, he's not a top half Premier League player. And Ollie Watkins or Ings, they still can't make a decision. Who's the striker? Every game, it's a combination of one or the other, or one plays or one doesn't, and no place for Coutinho in this team. It was a poor signing. They shouldn't have bought him. So there's things to solve for Steven Gerrard, and it's clear that I don't think the fan base is fully on board with what he's trying to do, because I'm not sure it's clear what they're trying to do. For West Ham, it's clear what they're trying to do, but they're not doing it. The levels have dropped dramatically. You know, to go back to my point from earlier, they're not playing hard enough right now, West Ham. I think Declan Rice and Thomas Soucek, they look tired. It's August. You can't be tired in August. I don't accept it. Thomas Soucek needs to be dropped. He needs to be dropped this weekend, and West Ham need to create a new midfield shape around Declan Rice playing in front of the back four, because at the moment, Thilo Kehrer, last week, he put in an all-time bad debut for West Ham. He was diabolical in the game against Brighton, single-handedly cost them both goals. But Zuma was also at fault for both goals. He looks injured and lumbering and overweight. And I think if Ogbonna was fit enough or Dawson was fit enough, both centre-halves will be dropped for this game. But they're not. Alas, we are where we are. I expect it to be Zuma and Kehrer again. I mean, they couldn't be as bad as last week, could they? And they've got to bring Ben Johnson at right back because Soufal's got concussions. There's all sorts of issues there. I don't expect a strong team to have played against Viborg in midweek. We're recording before that game. I'd expect a decent amount of, your Connor Coventry's, Flynn Downs, these kind of guys to have played. Offensively, why do West Ham look so vulnerable? Because they can't score a goal. They're the only team in the 92 of the football pyramid in England to have not scored a goal. Everyone else has scored a goal except West Ham in the league. And Ben Rama looks good and bad. He's not consistent. We know this. Jarrah Bowen right now is struggling to get on the end of flick-ons and chances. And Mikel Antonio, I think people have figured out West Ham's attack. They've figured out how to stop it. And if West Ham don't do it to the best of their ability, they're stoppable. And they're proven to be stoppable in every game. I'd love to see David Moyes make some changes. He said this week, we've got to be careful with the new players. And I'm thinking, yeah, I agree to a point. But you're not trying to teach an infant how to play piano. You're asking a footballer to play football. So Scamacca's been here for a month. Let's get him in the team. You picked him. Whether he's good or bad or not, I don't know. But you picked him. You bought him. Let's play him. Max Cornet scored goals for Burnley last year. Let's play him. Pablo Fornals looked West Ham's best player last week and he took him off to keep Soucek on. No, I'm sorry. Soucek's playing poorly. Get rid of him for the moment. He'll have lots to offer West Ham moving forward. But right now, no, I'm sorry. He's got to go. So this is the week I expect David Moyes to have worked all week on what to do in this game. And I expect them to ring the changes. In my heart, if you like, I expect West Ham not to lose. I think David Moyes has proven over his years and years and years that there comes a point sometimes where you've got to stop losing. And West Ham have got to stop the bleeding. That's what they have to do right now. And at 3.6, that'll be 4-1 by the weekend. The draw is very, very nice here. But I couldn't in all good conscience tell our viewers to bet on West Ham. You can't bet on West Ham right now. If you're going to go double chance, it might be West Ham and draw make some money for you. But I wouldn't touch that with a barge pole. I'd be looking draw. I'd say 0-0 is very likely here as both teams try and scramble for some early season points when they're playing poorly. But I'd look at Aston Villa win or the draw. And what's going to be interesting here as well is the corner count. Go for above 10 corners in the game. Both teams are going to try and get it into the attacking right, attacking left area. They'll try and cross. It'll get blocked. And there will be over 10 corners in this game. I expect 6 apiece at a minimum. Low scoring, draw, Villa win double, plenty of corners.
All right, many options here, many opinions. Actually, most of the people agree on both teams to score for this game. Betting or Rui Pedro are going for Aston Villa or Blue Shark, for instance, for West Ham at least to get a point. Let's see, because we have very good odds if you trust West Ham, although no one trusts your West Ham right now. Even Ibrahim is telling us that they are going to lose tonight in the Conference League game. Well, we are not analyzing that. Well, let's see. Let's see. If there is a reaction from West Ham, again, good odds, 3.3. If you are brave enough to back the Hammers. Next game also, we have very good odds for Wolves. Newcastle, I'm surprised that Newcastle is not favorite actually for this game. The odds are pretty much the same, and Newcastle, they are showing good performances so far, also last season, so they are in a good streak, good pace. Now they are gonna sign, as I mentioned before, Isaac, the striker of Real Sociedad. I don't know if it's a good addition for them, but they are paying a lot of money, and perhaps, Tom, is good to bet on them to get at least a point, a double chance against Wolves, because only 1 point with Wolves, and something we learned from last season and also in the beginning of this one is another team that they cannot score, only one goal scored in these 3 games.
Yeah, absolutely. Every Wolves game right now go 1 goal or less. Guedes came in last week, looked lively, but he's not a striker. Raul Jimenez has rightly been dropped because he's not been good since he came back, really, from that horrible injury. But facts are facts, he doesn't score goals anymore. So, I don't think he'll play again in this game. Mateus Nunes came in last week, looked okay, looked lovely, technically gifted. But there's about 20 of them at Wolves, and none of them are the goal scorer. They need Isak. That's who they need up front, someone who can run the channels. They need Callum Wilson, which is why Newcastle have made that move, because Wilson's injured, but we'll get to that. Look, Wolves are trying to be more offensive. That's what I'm told, right? Bruno Lage is trying to recapture that brilliant 6 months he had at Benfica and make Wolves more attacking. And at times against Tottenham, they look brilliant until the very, very last second when they simply never look like scoring. So I wouldn't back them to score here. I think Wolves will end up with another 0, and there are questions to answer. And it might need to be a transfer market thing. It's all well and good going to Jorge Mendes and being like, oh, get us another great Portuguese player. I think 7 started last week for them. And there were more on the bench to come on. And that's all well and good to have that. But which one's the striker? And right now, the squad doesn't make sense. They're all brilliant technical players. And you'd love to watch them in a 5-a-side game. They'd be amazing at 5-a-side or futsal. But I'm not too sure they're a competent, understandable football team. For Newcastle, there's a lot of good energy at Newcastle right now because of the public investment fund takeover, what Eddie Howe has brought, and a confidence to their play. They are still get-attable, as City have shown, but I don't think Wolves are going to have that threat. So go Newcastle win here. Isak won't sign in time, I don't believe. Even if he has, I don't think he will start. Callum Wilson being injured is a problem. But I think with Alan Maximan, I think Chris Wood will get a few minutes here. I think with Almiron, I think with the energy in midfield, I think with the solidity of Dan Burn and Sven Botman, and just the confidence of the place and the confidence Nick Pope gives them too, I'd be looking here at Newcastle win, low-scoring game. I'm basically saying to you, Wolves 0, Newcastle 1 in all sorts of scenarios. So I always say don't go on exact scores because they're a bit mad, but you've got Newcastle at 2.8. That'll be 3-1. That's worth your time anyway. But if you are going to go score anywhere this weekend, Wolves 0, Newcastle 1.
We can see right now the odds for Wolves 0, Newcastle 1, 8.8 in Oddspedia. So that's your option. Everyone is here going for an under, of course, under 2, under 2.5, under 3.5. Depend on how brave you are. And the odds also suggest us to go for a draw no bet, probably for Newcastle, because the odds are higher and they are a better team. But some people like Rui Pedro trust Wolves. I guess Rui Pedro Nogueira, he's Portuguese, so he has to go with Wolves. Of course, is the Portuguese team in this Premier League. Rui Pedro, also big fan of our league and show. And last game, Tom, Nottingham Forest, Tottenham. Here we have another clear favorite for Tottenham with 7 points. They struggle, but they beat Wolves. Kane scoring 7 points. So good start for contest men. Also good start for Nottingham Forest. 4 points. Do you think they can give Tottenham a headache in this game?
I tell you what, I am stunned at those odds. I am stunned looking at that. I mean, that's going to be 8-1 by the time we get to the weekend, to Sunday. That's brilliant for Nottingham Forest. I tell you what, look, West Ham went there on the opening home game, right? And that was one of those days they were just going to win. You know, the football gods, such as they are, smiled on Nottingham Forest. On other days, West Ham score 4 or 5 and win that game easily. But they didn't. And that gives the City ground this feel now of, you know, you can't beat us. Everyone's going to be so positive. It's going to be a sellout. It's going to be sunny. It's going to be glorious. You watch them in the last couple of games, you know, Worrell, Cook and McKenna. Is it a particularly good defensive trio in the Premier League? No, it's not. But right now it is. You know, this group over the first 10 games are going to get plenty of points. They will suffer, I think, after game 10, game 12. But right now they're in great form. In midfield, O'Brien's look fantastic. Lingard looks lively. Awoniyi is scoring. Brennan Johnson's frightening the life out of people. Nico Williams showing great promise. Harry Toffolo on the other side showing why they bought him. So lots to like about Nottingham Forest. And going there right now looks like it could be a nightmare. For Tottenham, they didn't play well last week against Wolves, but got the job done. They didn't play well the week before. Got the job done. Didn't play great against Southampton, really, despite the chances they created and the goals they scored. Got the job done. And Son Heung-min looks bad. He looks real bad right now. Another player may be suffering a hangover from the good form he had last season. I wouldn't be amazed to see Son on the bench for this game. So poor has he been. Maybe Lucas Moura comes in along with Harry Kane and Kulusevski, who was great last week, Kulusevski. And Kane scored the goal. So I'd be tempted to put a couple of euros on Forest just to win. Because the odds are silly. Those are silly odds. Like, I expected Forest to be about 4s here. So 8s, well worth your time. They can score goals. They can defend well. And there's something ethereal right now playing at the City ground. So that's bet number 1 that I would recommend. Number 2 is that Tottenham win this game and Harry Kane is one of the goal scorers. And it's a low-scoring game. I can see Tottenham, if they can stop Forest scoring, nicking a goal in the second half from a corner. They've hired a new corner coach, and I think that shows with the kind of corners they're taking at the moment, and Harry Kane scores it. So 2 scorelines. Number 1, just Forest to win, because those odds are mental. The other scoreline is Tottenham win without conceding, and Harry Kane is the goal scorer.
Both teams to score for Ibrahim is unbelievable. He's telling us the American odds, minus 110. The decimal is 1.97, so it's good. Actually, both teams to score. For Tom, perhaps this is the surprise of the weekend. So if you got 2 euros, spare 2 euros, why don't you trust Nottingham Forest to beat Tottenham? Tom, if this is the surprise for the weekend, which one is your favorite bet, safe bet you are most confident in?
Yeah, my safe bet is usually going to be City this season, spoiler alert. But today, I just feel like Liverpool have got to have a reaction from Monday. Bournemouth at home, who I think, despite the table and the points tally, have been the worst team that I've watched so far this season. So I think Liverpool beat Bournemouth. Safe bet.
We are not going to get rich with this safe bet, but perhaps if we put all together in our international ACCA, we get more money. And let's see if we can get some more money also with your ACCA, Tom.
Yeah, I'm being told my ACCAs are too boring, so I'm trying to sex it up for you. So I've gone with a 3-team ACCA, like I usually do. I know, a bit dull. But this week, as you mentioned earlier in the programme, home wins, big favourites, top 6 against teams they should beat. Go with Liverpool, go with Manchester City, and go with Arsenal to win. But double that up with 2.5 goals in all of these games. That brings it around 6-1. I think that's pretty good, and I feel very confident in that bet.
Okay, let's be confident. Tell us in your comments if you like Tom's ACCA. We will come back next week, Tom. Thanks, as always. If the ACCA is sexy, so you are with this very fancy shirt. Well done, Tom. Well done. See you next week. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Bye-bye.